Why isn't it easy to be a good person? Or rather, why is it so easy to be a bad person?
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer.
What were your thoughts on Elon Musk's hand gesture?
The same thing. He is not an
That's a gotcha.
It's the
Would you do that gesture right now?
Hi.
there you go.
But it goes, the hand goes to the chest beforehand.
Oh my God, bro.
That didn't feel a little weird?
Jews cannot hold public office. They can live here and they can live here peacefully and all these kinds of things. But no, this is a Christian nation. And those who reject Christ and hate Christ, they can be in the car and we shouldn't mistreat them, but they don't get to drive. Listen to me, Christian, you are allowed to have a country. It is okay to say, no, this country, this nation is for us and our posterity. It's not for Hindus. It's not for Muslims, and it's not for Jews. It belongs to Christians.
Just checking in on my friends who are struggling this week. My heart goes out to you. Hope you're doing okay.
The only way we don't have victory if we surrender. The only way that they win is we retreat. And we're not going to retreat. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to quit. Fight, fight, fight.
If Jesus was here right now, would you let him in?
Of course I would.
Why?
As long as he went through the proper, as long as he
came here legally. As long as Jesus Christ came to this country legally, we would let him in.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. No, thank you.
In Alejandro Jodorowsky's 2013 film, The Dream of Reality, we learn about Alejandro's life through a colorful and disturbing lens. The part of the story I'd like to focus on is about his father, Jaime. His father is a stern and prideful man, often abusive, and is unconditionally loved by Alejandro's mother and Alejandro himself. But Jaime can't receive this unconditional love as he has to go on a journey of self-discovery. The journey he ends up going on is one out of desperation. The people around him are suffering, and the only person he can point the finger at is the president. The president represents everything that Jaime hates about the greed of man. So, being the freedom fighter that Jaime sees himself as, he ends up working directly under the president, or rather closely next to him, not as a soldier or a politician, but as the caretaker for his horse. The president and the horse and the relationship they have for one another is of great value. This is the president's greatest companion. So Jaime starts to create a plan to get back at the president and to eventually take his life. While Jaime is working strictly in the bubble of this president, he gets to know him as a person. The president isn't just some greedy ruler, he's a man who loves. He loves deeply and profoundly this horse that symbolizes this thing we know as unconditional love. Jaime, confused because he's unaware that he too is unconditionally loved, though conflicted, Jaime attempts to kill the president by poisoning his horse. When the horse is poisoned in the middle of the night, the president comes to the stable to see the horse. Jaime sees this as an opportunity to end the president's life while he's distracted with his horse, but he can't pull the trigger. How can he kill something that unconditionally loves? How could he become the monster that he thinks this president is? Since Jaime is unable to murder the president, he loses his sense of self. His identity as a man, a father, and a freedom fighter are no longer. Jaime finds himself collapsed under the weight of his own reflection. He ends up homeless, walking the streets. When people interact with him, they find him disgusting. They turn him away. Some even refer to him as a sinner. Jaime goes through a journey of self-discovery, almost like a rebirth. In the end, the thing that saves Jaime, the thing that saves all of us, is love, unconditional love. Given to him by his wife and his son and his family, Jaime learns to move away from that prideful father that he once was.
Para que esté realmente orgulloso de ti, debes demostrarme que eres capaz de resistir al dolor.
Más fuerte. Más fuerte. Te quebraste un diente. No, si me quieres, no importa.
Into a man of humility, but it doesn't come easy. He's tested time and time again. There's a scene in the film in which his wife is testing him by showing him how he was so similar to the president and even Stalin. This admiration he has for strong men and the disdain he has for them at the same time. He became this man, a man of pride, which in one way is very helpful, much like the Prince of Saiyans, but he shares a lot of overlap with a character trope like Vegeta or Endeavor. And if you guys aren't familiar with those characters, it is that stereotypical male persona, toxic masculinity amped up to 1,000. It's this idea that my pride makes me strong even when it makes me abusive or destructive. And when Jaime has to face himself with the reality that he'd become this ugly thing he had thought he would fight against as a freedom fighter, he had to once again collapse his sense of self to find the humility he needed to unconditionally love. Greed, hedonism, and destruction are often themes found in Jodorowsky's films and are often seen as the evil in the world. The main theme I notice with all of his films is arrogance, the lack of humanity, and being the sole motivator for the greed, hedonism, and destruction that we see played out. If your ego is too big and you've convinced yourself that all you need is good times and self-indulgence, you'll end up dying on the gluttony you thought you wanted. We know that arrogance isn't good, and we know humility is much more respectable. Humility is the pathway to unconditional love. So why, then, do we become tempted to be arrogant and to stay in that arrogance? I often say that America is the Logan Paul of other countries. We are arrogant. America is so unique in the way that she functions that even our people who experience schizophrenia experience it more violent than people in other countries. Because America's culture is violence itself, greed and hedonism and gluttony, the lack of humility is killing us from inside of our minds and out. So why is it so easy to be a bad person? Why don't we stop using fast fashion if it's bad for workers and the environment?
According to some reports, Americans buy about 5 times more clothing than they did back in 1980. And one study suggests we wear each item an average of, just listen to this, 7 times. That increase can be tied to fast fashion. That's what they call it.
Have you ever wondered where the clothes you throw away end up? Some of them travel thousands of miles to Ghana. This is actually no beach paradise. Look a little closer, and your discarded fast fashion could be rotting right here.
It's estimated 15 million items arrive here every week.
Ghana is only a country of 30 million people.
That's fashion designer and activist Sammy Oting, who knows every inch of this 7-acre maze with its more than 5,000 stalls.
Before, they used to have like good quality clothes, but now there's a lot of trash and a lot of like very low quality clothes. The whole fast fashion module is built around building cheap clothing.
And the US is the biggest culprit, exporting more second-hand clothing than any other country on earth.
Why don't we eat less meat if it's bad for the overall health of our population, and it's bad for animals, and it's bad for the environment?
According to the United Nations, animal agriculture is responsible for nearly 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. That's more emissions than all cars, planes, trains, and boats combined. Raising animals for food is the leading cause of deforestation, and a huge portion of that is for raising animals or raising crops to feed animals.
Why do we celebrate the suffering of others in the name of justice?
Whatever was more important than my son, your granddaughters, whatever it was, I hope you get it. It was cheaper gas prices, cheaper eggs, more guns. Greenland, now for some reason. I hope you get that. Or else it was all for nothing, right? That's not true. It's not even true. I hope you suffer, honestly. I do. And before you tell me how cruel that is, hoping doesn't do anything. I hope for lots of things that don't happen.
What do you think about Trump's border policy?
I love it. I'm 100% for it. As a Mexican American, I truly believe that we need to take our country back. When I came to this country, I stood in line for hours and days before I could get my green card.
Do you know anybody that crossed the border without applying for green card?
Oh yes, unfortunately I have family members that did. Cousins, nephews, nieces.
Because those people might be deported if Donald Trump wins.
That's okay, that's okay.
You would be okay with your cousins being deported?
Yeah, I will be okay. They can be deported, but they can also apply to come back to the United States, but do it the right way.
And how long have they been here for?
Years, like 20, some like 30 years.
How do you think they would feel about you saying that?
Oh, they would be very angry. They are angry at me right now. They don't talk to me because I support Trump.
Why do we think of ourselves as bad? Because they say we are? And are we bad because we believe them? Or maybe we are bad and we need to be less bad. But what does that look like? In the 1944 French play, No Exit, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, because the famous quote, "Hell is other people," comes from that play. And I know when you hear it, you're probably thinking, oh yes, hell. other people. But the point of the play is to make us understand that we are the other people. We are someone's hell. We are the people who deserve to be trapped in the room, which the three main characters find themselves in. If we connect it to modern times, I actually think The Good Place is basically No Exit retold. Now, I haven't looked this up, but I'm pretty sure other people have also made that connection. The Good Place allows us to watch people be people, or on this channel, as we say, humans gonna human.
I am here to learn about ethnics.
Warning, spoilers ahead. In the show The Good Place, the main characters find themselves in what they think is heaven.
Every person gets to live in a home that perfectly matches his or her true essence.
Cool. I guess that's why my house, for example, is this adorable little cottage, whereas other people might have homes that are bigger, like that one.
Exactly. Oh, I'm so happy you get it.
But only to discover they are indeed in the bad place.
Holy mother-forking shirt balls. This is the bad place.
Eleanor, you really suck. I was so close to pulling it off.
Eleanor always seems to realize that they're in the bad place just at the moment.
Excuse me. Sorry, the door was open, so I just came in. Did you just say I'm in the bad place?
Attempt 109.
This is the bad place. This is the bad place. This is the bad place.
The pig's getting angry.
As the story progresses and our characters, here's the spoiler, end up in the good place, they realize even that isn't the end.
On paper, this is paradise. All your desires and needs are met, but it's infinite. And when perfection goes on forever, you become this glassy-eyed mush person.
See, when we go on a journey of introspection, we think the self-awareness is the end. But self-awareness without the introspection journey, it's not very helpful.
It's gonna be fine. We just need a plan.
I got a plan. We hack into Michael's phone, download all his nudes, and then blackmail him.
No. What are you No.
Yo, you should listen to me. I came up with hundreds of plans in my life, and only one of them got me killed.
So though they're self-aware enough to know they are in the bad place, and introspective enough to get to the good place, they realize it's not the end. Eventually they realize there's more. They're ready to move on to another version of next. And the show ends really beautifully with the characters making a final exit. An exit into who knows where.
So as I mentioned before, you can sit on this bench as long as you want. And whenever you're ready, you just walk through.
I think what I take from it is that there is always more.
I wonder how Michael's doing.
I assume he's doing the same as every human. Some good days. Some bad days.
She's gonna be okay. The city has really good hospitals.
This idea, this construct we've created around enlightenment and knowing the self, good and bad, heaven and hell, that it doesn't end just because we created a construct.
He's got a few friends.
Such a good boy, Jason. Such a good boy.
A few people he can't stand. He's learning some things all by himself.
Instead, we should take those constructs down and reconstruct them, or even better, move beyond them.
And hopefully, learning to ask for help when he needs it.
The challenge I pose to you is not to concern yourself with the fear of ending up in the bad place. Too many people do that already.
He's messing up, trying again, and messing up again, and then getting things wrong, and then trying to make them right. That's what everyone does.
But working towards the reality of accepting that we're already there. But much like the show, there's always something greater to look forward to, and it's worth pursuing. What I mean to say with all of this is that it's not about being good or bad. It's about first acknowledging that we are, and then what can be, and then never stop pursuing the what can be. Sometimes I think human beings really stop themselves because they think, oh, good enough. But your good enough is the state of the world as it is. And the state of the world is a reflection of us as a whole. So first we have to accept that we are, and then we can pursue what could be. But right now it feels like a lot of people keep stopping and they get comfortable, but then they're miserable. I think misery is a state of stagnation. And I think there's so much more life to be experienced and so much more beyond that still. But I really do recommend that people remind themselves that it's not about getting to the good place. It's about going through that second door and not knowing what's on the other side.